In our 11th lecture for programming mobile devices, we're going to take a look at menus. Now, you might recall that we have two screens currently in our mobile application. We have the Find Location screen, and then we have a Find Specimen screen. I click the button, and with any luck, I might still have a breakpoint set. Yes, I do. Hang on, sorry about that. I'm going to have to play through the breakpoint to get to the next screen. So just a moment. Okay, oh, another breakpoint. And there we go. Oh, come on. Enough breakpoints for today. Okay, we have two different screens. Our application might have several screens, and so we will want to have a way to navigate from screen to screen. One thing we did early on is we gave both of these screens the same superclass. And one benefit of that is that we only have to define the menu one time in that superclass. So, what do we need to add a menu? To add a menu, we need to go to an activity and override the onCreateOptions menu method, and that's where we can create a menu. This gives us a menu object, and we can use the add method of this menu object to add menu items to the menu. We can also give it shortcuts. Remember last time, or in one of our previous lectures, we thought about where we tend to use our mobile phones. Go ahead and think about that now. I know what you were thinking. So we want to make it so that it is easy to navigate with very few clicks of any buttons because we do have a limited typewriter device, a limited keypad device. So when possible, we'll want to use something like set alphabetic shortcut or set QWERTY mode to be able to give each of our menu items basically alphabetic shortcuts. So we'll take a look at that in just a minute. Now, when a menu item is selected, it's going to call the overridden method on options items selected, and that's where we can deal with each of these menu items. This is going to receive an item attribute. From that, we can get the unique identifier of that item and figure out which menu item was clicked. Many times we'll use a case switch statement to do this, which is something you may or may not have talked about before. I don't tend to talk about them much because frankly I don't like them. I try to avoid if tests whenever possible, but needless to say, this is a case where it can be used. Okay, because we want a common menu from screen to screen, typically we'll define a superclass of the activity as we did in our example, and then we will define the menu methods in that superclass. Now, when a menu item is clicked, what it typically means is we want to open another screen. And we can do this with an intent or an explicit intent, which we'll discover as well. So let's take a look. Okay, I am going to switch perspective here. Just one moment, we'll get this lined up. Okay, I'm switching perspective and I'm going to our summer course. Remember that location finder and plant search activity are the two activities we've defined so far, and they both extend from plant places activity. So here's a great place to put my menus. But first I see some things that are lacking. First of all, I'll probably want to put a copyright. Copyright 2012, plantplaces.com. Next, I want to put a class description here, and we'll say superclass that contains all common functionality for all activities on the Plant Places mobile application. Okay, now the method I want to override to create my menu is called, it was called something like onCreate or something. Well, let me show you a shortcut in Eclipse. Start typing the method name, just the method name, onCrea, like so. Now, with the cursor right after that, hold down Control and hit space. And what Eclipse will do is it will look in the superclasses at non-private methods that can be overridden. and it figures out you probably want to override one of these methods. Sure enough, I see it's a fairly long name, but onCreateOptionsMenu is the method that I wish to override. So I simply hit enter, and we see it gives us this override annotation. Keep that there. Very important. Keep that there. Because if the superclass ever changes method signature, it will let us know via a compiler error that this signature no longer matches and therefore is no longer overriding the superclass. That sounds like something that wouldn't happen a lot, but trust me, when it does happen, it's very nice to have that override annotation. That's another one of those things where I spent hours and hours on something that shouldn't have been a big deal. Next, it's going to call onCreateOptionsMenu. It's simply going to call the superclass method. That's always a good idea. Now what I can do is start to create menu options. So I'm going to say menu, which is this guy passed in here, dot add. Okay. Oh, phooey. That's not the signature I wanted. 1 second, let me go back to the PowerPoint and well, it doesn't have the one I want. I was hoping for something that would tell me how to add it. Okay, 1 second, please. Okay, no problem. I just picked the wrong method signature, so I'm going to say menu.add, and what I want is actually this third signature here. The group ID, we can group menu items together, but we don't need to in this case, so we're just going to set that to 0. The item ID is important. That's a unique identifier that we're going to use on the other side when this menu is clicked. Order, we're not going to worry about an order, so we'll just say, we'll give it a constant menu.none, which means we don't care about order. And then the title is what will appear on that menu when the user tries to look at the menu. We could hard code that as a string, but that's never a good idea, so we'll find an alternate way to do that. So I'll go ahead and click on this. Group ID will say 0. Item ID. Well, what we need to put here is a number, but really we should make that a constant. I'm going to put the number 1 in now, but we're going to come back and clean that up in a moment. Order, menu.none, just a filler. That'll be fine. Finally, title. Once again, I can put in here I can put in here, say, the location screen. Okay, but really I should avoid string literals whenever possible. Now, why doesn't this like that? What do I have? Oh, okay. Okay, I need to take out the return here. Okay, and then I'll just put return true, and we're all set. Okay. So there we go. So let's clean this up one at a time. First of all, I'm going to highlight this one, right click, and I'm going to say refactor, and I'm going to say extract constant. Again, we're going to need to use this number on the other side when the menu option is clicked to figure out which one was clicked. So I'm going to choose a constant, and we need to give it a name. I'm going to say menu location screen. So a constant is typically a static, I'm going to make this one protected. It's typically a static final variable with a very descriptive name that's set to some number. We don't really worry about what the number is, but we're going to use this variable throughout our application whenever we want to refer to, in this case, our menu location. So in other words, instead of using some silly number throughout our application, we assign that number to a constant, and we always refer to it by its constant. This makes life very easy on us because we don't just have a random number. If we needed to change that number for some reason, we'd only have to change it in one place. Number 2, when we have this associated with a variable, we can do what's called a reference search in Eclipse, and we can see every piece of code that references that. That makes refactoring, debugging, makes that all much easier. So I choose OK. Okay, that looks a lot better, and we'll see how we're going to use this again later. Again, the number here really doesn't matter It's just the idea that anytime we want to refer to this, we're going to refer to that variable menu location screen. Okay. Now I'm a bit worried about this guy location here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over, let me clean this up a bit. I'm going to go to my resources, or actually, uh, there we go. I'm going to go to strings XML, click on that, and I'm going to add this string literal to strings XML. Let's see if it will let me do it. Here we go. I clicked on strings XML and then resources. Now I'm going to choose add string. Okay. And name, I will say MNU location screen. Okay. Value, location. Uh, That's fine. We'll keep it. We want to keep it. I really want to say go to the location screen, but we need to keep it nice and short because it's going to be on our small monitor. Then I'll choose save. Now you see what I've done here is I've added this to the list of strings in our resource file. And remember, we want to put it there for internationalization purposes. Okay, so that if we do switch to a different language, if we wish to support another language, we just replace this file. And again, you might think, oh, why would we ever want to do that? But I can tell you from firsthand experience that's very important. It's why I'm in Mexico right now working on a point of sale application, because the software was set up for internationalization. And so when a Mexican customer wanted a new point of sale, this was a big requirement they have. It must be internationalizable, if that's a word. And it is very interesting because the default language for this application is Spanish. But when I log on with my user ID, everything immediately changes to English because it knows that my language preference is English. So that's why we try to put these name value pairs in a resource file, and we try to avoid hard-coded strings. Okay, that being said, I go back to plant places activity. Now I need some way to get that out of the resource file. What I can do is simply invoke getString, open paren, and then I refer to the unique identifier that was generated for that string, which is going to be r.id. And then, let's see, what did we call it? I believe we called it, and you know, I don't see it right here. I thought we called, well, okay, let me go back and see. It is RID, right? R ID. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's why I couldn't find it. R.string. R.string. And we gave that a name, MNU location screen. And there we go. So see, now instead of a string literal, we're pulling that string from a configuration file that can very easily be changed. Okay? Let's do this one more time. So let's say this is for the find location screen. Okay, and now we'll say plant search screen. Okay, same syntax, menu.add 0. We'll give this one a constant of 2. They have to be unique. Menu.none. And then we need to give it plant search, and we'll internationalize that in just a second. We'll do the same set of steps. I'll highlight the 2, right-click, say refactor, extract constant. We'll keep a similar naming convention. We'll say menu plant search, and there we go. Now for plant search, we're going to take this guy out, go to strings XML. Okay, I could just enter it here by hand, but instead I'll go to resources, and we'll choose add string. Okay, name, we'll say MNU plant search screen. Remember that, we'll come back to that. Value, plant search, and save. There we go, we've added it to our strings file. Now I go back to my plant places activity, and I replace the but we could leave that hard-coded string in there. It would work, it just wouldn't be the best way to do it. Now I say getString r.string.mnu plant search screen. There we go. And now we have a menu to go from the location screen to the plant search screen and back again. Truth is, we'll actually have a different way to navigate between those two screens, but in any case, we want a little bit of experience in setting up this menu. So I choose Save. This will, let's see, I'm going to terminate my debugger session. This will, shoot, did I lose? Okay. Sorry, I lost, sometimes, let's see, there we go. Okay, let's say, I know this isn't visible to you, but I lost my little box for Screencast-O-Matic that shows what's recording on the screen. So I just got it back. Okay. So this will create the menu. Now, what's going to happen when the user clicks on a menu item? And that's what we're going to do when we override the on options item selected. Again, I'll just start typing on option, and then control and space will show me all of the method names that start with that text in the superclasses that I can override. I go ahead and choose on option item selected. Now, we'll go ahead and leave the super call, and we'll simply return true. I don't know why, but these two methods require us to return true. Kind of crazy, but nonetheless, there we go. Now, here's what we're going to get. What we get is the menu item that was picked, and that is what we've added up here. It's going to give us an object that tells us which one of these is picked. Now, how are we going to tell them apart? We're going to tell them apart by this unique identifier. But once again, we don't care what the actual number is because we're going to use these constants. So, item dot get, I believe it's get item ID. Return the identifier for this menu item. Yeah, there we go. Item dot get item ID. Okay. This is basically going to be an int that's represented by those constants. What we can do is we can put this in a switch case statement. So I'll say switch item.getItemID. Okay. And then we'll say case menu location screen break. Oh, sorry, that has to be followed by a colon. As a matter of fact, I believe I need do I need curlies? I honestly don't use this much. I think I need curlies around those. I'm going to control A and control I, which will auto indent. Okay, and then I'm going to say case, what was our other one? Menu plant search. Okay, and break. Okay, now what's going to happen, how a switch case statement works is it's going to take the number returned from that, and it's going to find a case where the variable that follows the word case is the same as that number. Okay? There's no greater than or less than, they have to be equal. So, if we click on the location screen, the ID is going to be 1. This is going to return 1, and we're going to need to find out which of these cases, either location screen or plant screen, is 1. Then what's going to happen is it will run all of the lines between this case line and the break. And when it sees the break, it's going to break out of the switch case. So that's how a switch case works. Basically, we're in here, we're deciding which menu item was clicked and what we're going to do when that menu item is clicked. So what I'll do at this point is I will delegate this to a couple of other methods. We'll say load location screen. Okay. And then we'll say load plant search screen. I'm getting red lines because I'm trying to invoke methods that I haven't even created yet. So I let Eclipse do some work for me. I hold down Control and press 1, and I say create the method. Again, hold down Control and press 1, create the method. There we go. So if the location screen is invoked, it's going to fall through the case switch statement, come to this line, and invoke this method. Okay, there we go. Let's go ahead and I'm going to set a couple of breakpoints here, and let's watch what happens when this works. After we watch that, we'll go ahead and put some meat behind these methods. So I'm going to save. I'm going to start the debugger, and now it does take some time for the debugger to load. So I'm going to pause this recording and then start recording again once that picks up. Okay, so um, I'm a bit surprised. I started the debugger, but my breakpoint didn't hit. Let me go back to debug and make sure that the debugger's running. My breakpoint didn't hit. Oh, I know why. Okay, because I haven't told it, I haven't clicked on the menu yet. I'm going to go over here in the debugger and I'm going to click on the menu key. And now I'm going to cross my fingers, and sure enough, there we go. There's our breakpoint. Okay, notice what it's doing now since I hit the menu key is it has invoked the onCreateOptions menu method. And now I can F6 to step through this. It creates both menu items and returns true. So I'll go ahead and play, and then I'll go back. And what we see at the bottom of the screen is I have location and plant search that have popped up as menu items. Let me hit location. Once again, the debugger grabs, and notice at this point it has invoked the on options item selected. So I'm going to F6 and F6. And now one thing in Eclipse, you can highlight an area in the debugger, hold Control-Shift-I, and it will tell you the value of that. So when I highlight item.getItemID, it tells me that that has a value of 1. Okay? This is going to go to the load location screen. I'll F5 into that. And of course, we have nothing there yet. And then I F6 out, and then we break out of the loop, and we finish, and we're all set. So sure enough, we've witnessed that onCreateOptions menu is invoked when we click the menu button in Android, and then onOptionsItemSelected is invoked when we actually select a menu item. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to actually start each of these, the plant search screen or the location screen. And we'll go to activities and intents, and we'll remember that an explicit intent says, here is exactly what I want to do, and this is how we do it. So an explicit intent, we first define an intent, and we pass in the name of the activity class that we want to invoke. And then we say start activity, which means just go run this activity. So that's what we'll do here. I'm going to say, first of all, we'll remove this intent, plant search intent equals new intent, this comma, and then the name of the plant search activity class, plant search activity class. Hopefully that all worked well. I'll Control-Shift-O to import intent. Okay, and then we'll say start activity plant search intent. And this will basically render the plant search screen. So I'll put a comment to that effect. Okay, now load location screen, we'll do something similar. Render the load or the location screen. Okay, intent, location intent equals new intent. Okay, this comma, location find, what do we call that? Finder dot class. Okay, and then start activity location intent. Okay, and save. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to say, I'm going to try something new this time. I'm going to say terminate, but then I'm going to try and relaunch my debugger. I believe if we keep the window open, it can do a hot swap. So I'm going to try this, see if that'll save a little bit of time. In case it doesn't, I'm going to go ahead and pause now and then start again once I have the debugger up and running and our emulator. Oh, actually, here we go. Well, that didn't take long, did it? See, that'll save a little bit of time. We disconnect, and then we simply relaunch the debugger, but the AVD is already there. So that'll work. I choose menu, and no surprise, it's going to call the onCreateOptions menu. I'll F6 through that. Okay, F8 to continue going. And so it's brought up the menu within the location screen. Now I'm going to hit plant search, and let's see how this goes. On options item selected, okay, I F6. I'm going to highlight and Control-Shift-I item.getID. Oh, come on. Okay, there we go. Gives me the value of 2. I'm going to highlight and Control-Shift-I menu plant search. That's also 2. So it should jump right down to here in this load plant search screen. So I F6, and there we go. Now I'm going to F5 to step into this method, and now we see it's going to create a new intent, and it's going to start the activity. So I'm going to press F8 and return to my debugger, and with any luck, as soon as I step through the debugger, it should take us to the plant search screen. And we see actually it is debugging in there, so sure enough, here we go, plant search screen. Okay, I am going to, 1 second, I've lost my screencast again. Okay, there we go. Almost got it back. Okay, there we go. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to disconnect the debugger just so that we can kind of play around with this and prove to ourselves that our screen toggle works. Menu, location, render the location screen. Menu, plant search, render the plant search screen. And there we go. So we're at the 26-minute mark, so think of some quiz question suggestions for this. Number 1, why we have a superclass, the onCreate options menu, and the onOptions item selected. And think about what those methods do. Think about why we use constants. Think about how to get a string from the strings XML resource file. Think about switch case. And also explicit intents. What we see here is an explicit intent that's just moving to another screen. In our next lecture, we're going, well, you know what? Actually, I might just continue it with this lecture. I don't know. No, we'll go ahead and go to another lecture. In our next lecture, we're going to look at another method, which is start activity for result. And that means we want to call a different activity. And when we're finished with that activity, we want it to return back to us some result. So for that, we're going to need an intent. We're also going to need a bundle, and we're going to need a few other methods. So I'll go ahead and save this, and we'll make that our next lecture. Thank you.